What do I wish I had known? It's not easy. I think AGTV and a lot of shows make real estate sound like you just get your license and it's going to be raining money. It's a grind, just like any other career. You really have to be diligent and have a clear focus goal in terms of what you want and putting in the time to get results. I know 2021 when I really was laser focused. I was waking up at 4:45, 5 a.m. and be at the office, getting an hour workout in, be at the office at 6:30, have some time to really plan the day and starting hitting the phones at 8:30 and grinding away. And I'd probably leave around 7:30 at night, but it paid off. But I think that first year in particular, it's essential to put in your dues. So that way down the road, if you decide to transition to different avenues of real estate, you have the foundation, you know what you're doing. And if you decide to pivot, you're going to be fine.
So the question is this: how do most agents succeed in today's competitive real estate market when all the successful agents are keeping the secrets to themselves? So that's the question, and this podcast will give you the answer. I interview agents from all over the world. I ask them their tactics, and they share all of their secrets with me so we can give them to the world. I'm Aaron Amuchastegui, and welcome to Real Estate Rockstars. Real Estate Rockstars, this is Aaron Amuchastegui coming back to you for a fun 30 Under 30 interview. I'm joined by Shelby Johnson. Shelby, say hi.
Ooh, hello, Real Estate Rockstars. Aaron, thanks for having me back. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, all you listeners, you could probably recognize Shelby's voice from when she interviewed me about my story last month. But it's not about me or Shelby today. It is about Dhaval Patel. Dhaval is one of the newest class of the 30 Under 30 realtors in the U.S. We reached out to Dhaval and said, Dhaval, we'd love to get you on the podcast, and he's here today. Dhaval, how's it going, man?
Thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it, Aaron and Shelby. Things are going well. We've got beautiful weather here in Western Mass, so things are good.
Yeah. So when did you become an agent?
I got licensed in February of 2020.
Okay. So I have a lot more questions, but I'm just going to start to you got your licensed a month before the world shut down for a second. And we all know what happened after, but so you got your license in February. Tell me about your first 2 or 3 months there. What was that like? Were you I made a big mistake, or were you off to the races?
That's a good question. It was really an interesting time, right? So, March, we actually have a month-long boot camp as new agents with our brokerage. So finished that. And to top it off, I flew out to San Francisco for a Tony Robbins conference, UPW. The day I landed is the day they canceled the conference. First time in 41 years. So it was kind of bonkers.
It's awful.
Still made the best of it. But it was slow. I mean, I was driving. I spent a lot of time prospecting, and I think it was actually a blessing in disguise. I got some valuable time with their CEO. I would be the first one at the office, the last one to leave. And if I had any questions that came up during prospecting calls for that specific day, just say, hey, Steve, I had this situation. What would you do? And that was very, very helpful. And also when you're new, you don't know what you don't know. So I was driving, an hour and a half for a client that was nowhere near ready to buy it, but it was great experience to be able to better understand clients' motivation.
Yeah.
Totally.
Landing in San Francisco would have been probably one of the worst places in the United States to be the day that they locked down the world. So I can only imagine what a shock that was. Have you gone to UPW after or since?
Yes. So I did 2 virtual conferences with Tony and actually did an in-person one. We organized with several agents from our brokerage, and we went last November. So that was a really beautiful experience. There's 10,000 plus attendees there, a lot of realtors and small business owners. So really, really wonderful memories.
So what made you want to get into real estate?
Yeah, so it was at the end of a 6-month road trip. I started off as a mini business trip and really turned into self exploration and met folks that I never would have normally encountered. I mean, I ended up on an organic farm for several weeks and a few different farms, and really experienced that life and staying near Amish folks. But when I got back, I wanted to hit the ground running, and I've always been interested in sales. And what better avenue than real estate? The price points are much larger than cars or other asset classes. And January of 2020, I decided to go ahead and pull the trigger. I spent 3 weeks training, doing all the prep work to get licensed. And I ran into our broker, Steven Rovithis, at a networking event. So I was doing some research online. He had one of the top brokerages in the area. And just so happened there was a local meetup, and he was the keynote speaker. So usually they had 10, 15 people at these things, and it was standing room only. There was, I think, close to 100 people, and everything that he said was spot on in terms of the books that he recommended, the life advice, and I knew this is a guy I wanted to run with, and I was ready to do it for free. So I offered him a proposition. Hey, I just want to learn from you. Will you be my mentor? And he's like, it's real estate. It's 100% commission. No need. Come on board. So it's been a great journey.
Oh my gosh. So you mentioned you were interested in sales, and then you also mentioned earlier that you spent a lot of time that first couple of months in prospecting. So I was curious, what does that prospecting actually look like? Because a lot of agents in their first year really struggle with that. So what does it look like in your business?
It's picking up the phone and making calls. So we had probably thousands of leads in our database. The broker created Steven Rovithis, Rovi Homes in 2015. And there's thousands of different clients that had reached out to us over the years. And you can call those clients and build a connection and see if they're ready to buy. And many times, I mean, these are internet leads. So it's 12, 18 months out, sometimes even longer. So it's a nurtured process, but I was able to find a few clients that were ready, willing, and able to buy through those prospecting dials.
So those leads. Now I want to dig in. I love the question, Shelby, and I want to dig in a little further. So he came up with a database, but it was like this database that he had of leads. But you said they were online leads. What was the tag? Do you know what the tag was that became the online leads? Was it like ads on Zillow or ads on Facebook that said come here for something? Like how is he starting to grow that? Because you said because they kind of reached out to you guys about interest in real estate is what it sounded like. Mm-hmm. But then, so where did you guys get those leads? Do you know what was that catch like? And then what was the actual phone call like?
Yeah. So, Facebook ads, Google pay-per-clicks, and then, Zillow, realtor.com, the usual, leads that you're buying, per zip codes. And then in terms of picking up the phone, we had, a trainer that was experienced in calling for sale by owners, and he gave us a guideline and some scripts to utilize, but it was basically getting over the fear of rejection on the phone, right? Most of the time, the conversations actually go pretty well. Not all the time, right? You're going to find some folks that aren't the nicest, but I think it's important to not take it personally. You never know what's going on their side. Maybe they're having a rough day, a rough week, or you never know their backstory. So I think my mindset and approach was leave them better than you found them. And if there's anything that we can do as realtors to help and support, and we're not trying to convince them to buy or sell a property. It's, are they ready to move forward in the search? And is there anything that we can do that's going to be of value for them?
Totally.
What was your favorite script?
Yeah.
It's a good question. So one that we're using right now, I imagine for folks listening in, real estate has, in many markets, has really slowed down. So there may be leads in your database that you've picked up through Facebook or Zillow or whatever, and picking up the phone and saying, hey, it's Dhaval, giving a quick buzz back from the real estate office. We're connected on 123 Main Street. Did you want to go ahead and pop over and take a look at that? Digging a little bit deeper, what did they like about that specific property? Are they still searching, or are they putting it on a quick pause sometimes? And then peeling back the onion, you'll see Do they put the search on pause due to some personal things? Are they concerned about interest rates and understanding the motivation behind it? For example, if you have a client that's 6 months pregnant, they need to move within a specific timeline versus a window shopper that is just curious about the market, and really dissecting and understanding where that specific client is in the journey and then being able to best serve them. For example, if they need credit repair, we've got lenders that we work with for free because of the amount of volume that we'll do. They'll help them nurture their credit score and what are different tactics they can utilize to improve that over time.
How many calls a day were you like, how many hours or how many calls in the beginning? And then like what CRM are you calling out of?
Yeah, the initial CRM that we're using was kind of one and all. So it was a 3-line dialer. You can do offers. It was a good starting point, I'd say, for the brokerage. I don't know, probably thousands of calls over a weekend. Probably actually about 1,000 to 1,500 calls over a weekend, but we're using a 3-line dialer. So definitely sped up the process. Okay. Currently, we're using Follow Up Boss and double dipping with YLOPO. It's a really, really powerful combination. Follow Up Boss is a one-line dialer, but it really helps as agents be more organized and using smart lists and having everything in one central location with a very clear idea of who you need to contact that specific day.
So you have all of these thousands of contacts at your disposal. You have the CRM, the triple dialer, the whole thing. Are you required to make calls, or is this just an opportunity presented? Because you are you're one of the 30 under 30. So that means you've been putting in the extra work and seeing the success. So like, are you by yourself doing these calls, or like, is this a requirement? What does that look like?
Great question. I think as a culture, we tend to focus heavy on prospecting because it's one of the leading indicators that's really going to lead to the results that you want. And on Fridays, we actually have a team brokerage call with someone that's an expert when it comes to prospecting. He's been doing it for 20, 30 years. He's actually a keynote speaker with YLOPO at a previous conference earlier this year. So we're very, very lucky to have him on our team as a trainer. And he goes over scripting, different objections that may come up. And we've actually recently changed the model. So previously it was 2 hours of listening to him calling for sale by owners or different clients. And now we spend 30 minutes with him. And then we spend the remainder 90 minutes going over and actually prospecting ourselves, bringing any questions to him.
Hey listeners, Aaron here. I just want to tell you about something I'm super, super excited about. You know, a couple months ago, I had a bunch of people in my office in Austin, and I taught what I called my foreclosure masterclass. It was to teach investors how to make money with distressed real estate investing through foreclosures and other sorts of leads that are out there of people that are desperate to sell or need to sell, and maybe they don't even know it yet. And that process. Well, we had so much fun when everyone came to the office. So many people said they wanted to do it again. I recorded the class. It's now live and available for purchase. So if you're interested in learning about becoming an investor and learning about becoming an investor agent, being able to educate yourself some more around foreclosures, about distressed real estate and how to get those, go to theforeclosuremasterclass.com, theforeclosuremasterclass.com. All right, back to the podcast. So it's 30 minutes of listening to him make calls. So you guys are there. And so he's like taking the dialer. He's showing you the process. So he's not just saying like, hey, go make calls. He's doing them. You guys listen to it. You get to see the process. When I first got into home building, I think probably one of the best office experiences I ever had was getting to sit in the same tiny office with two other guys. And they were calling and negotiating with trades and like trying to get them essentially to come down on their prices or get quotes, or like these cold interviews of, hey, you haven't heard of us, but we're building 100 houses. Would you like to bid on them? And there was nothing better than me just hearing them have the conversation. And then I could have the conversations afterward. And for me, it felt so natural, but at times when I've tried to go train other people or give people the tasks or like record it once, I haven't had like as good of an outcome because, and I think about that in the sense that back when I first started, it all seemed like, oh, very natural, but it was only because I heard them talking so naturally, I knew that they could do it. And so I think that that's a pretty brilliant idea that they're doing in your office for you guys to be able to do that. How did your first year go? Like, how long did it take to get your first deal? What was that first deal like? And then what was it like, let's say your first 12 months from February 2020 to February 2021?
It was a struggle. So first year, my first deal was in May of 2020. So roughly 3 months in, and it was a Zillow client. This is when the team was still paying for leads. And I've actually worked with them. We bought and sold 3 times, and we're looking for a 4th property for them. So it's been pretty fruitful. And I think I was trying to do too much the first year. I was spending a lot of time learning, and I didn't spend enough time implementing. So spending several hours a day learning and listening to different podcasts and books. But I think the key, especially when you're first starting out, is to implement. It's to gain experience, because, it's beautiful listening to an audiobook about how to sell real estate, but it's actually going out there, failing, making mistakes, goofing up on the phone, and understanding that it's going to be okay. And I think that the transition from the first year to second year, I think that was one of the things that really clicked. And to put it in numbers, my first year I sold 9 homes. The second year is 28 units. And I did hire a coach towards the end of 2020. And I think that really helped. I have ADHD, and I was just trying to focus 50 different things. And the coach really helped me get laser focus and have goals in 30-day increments and tangible progress. Right? How many prospecting calls am I making? How many deals are under agreement, et cetera?
Yeah. So what's something that, like, now that you've been an agent for 3 years, 3.5 years, mm-hmm. How many deals have you done? What's like the average price point of that? And what's something now you wish you would have known when you first started?
Deals, roughly 60, in the last 3 years. What do I wish I had known? It's not easy. I think HGTV and, a lot of shows make real estate sound like, you just get your license and it's going to be raining money. It's a grind, just like any other career. You really have to be diligent and have a clear focus goal in terms of what you want. And putting in the time to get results. I know 2021, when I really was laser focused, I was waking up at 4:45, 5 a.m. and be at the office, getting an hour workout in, be at the office at 6:30, have some time to really plan the day, and hitting the phones at 8:30 and grinding away. And I'd probably leave around 7:30 at night, but it paid off. But I think that first year in particular, it's essential to put in your dues. So that way down the road, if you decide to transition to different avenues of real estate, you have the foundation, you know what you're doing. And if you decide to pivot, you're going to be fine.
All right. So so let's see now, what are your goals for next year?
It's a good question. I think I'm looking to transition into the investing side of real estate and also dive into commercial. So I've got a lot of people that I've met through various networking events that are looking to buy large multifamily properties. And I think it's a very interesting asset class. I'm also I'm participating in a real estate investing course right now, going over fundamentals of wholesale flipping and investing. So I think that's a fascinating avenue that I'm really, really curious to explore.
Yeah. Yeah. I think with so many of us, I know Shelby can speak to it. That's like half the stuff people talk about in the mastermind is, us expanding from being agents, right, to also being agent slash investors, agent slash like owning real estate. Because being an agent, working as an agent is great. It's like that first step to wealth. Like having an income is the first step to wealth. But as you become an expert in real estate, there's no better person than to be able to start doing investments, whether it's flips or rentals or wholesaling. At our first mastermind a couple of years ago, a couple of the guys introduced it as they said, if you're an agent and you're not also, wholesaling or doing these other things, it's like you're working just for tips. Like you're leaving everything else on the table because there's this wealth of knowledge and opportunity in real estate. So you might get into some multifamily and some other stuff. The what's the size of the apart multifamily stuff out where you're at?
It's good. So in Hartford County, I mean, there's some 30 units, some 20 units. It's not like Texas, I'd say, for the most part, where you have 300 unit apartment buildings. Things are typically a little bit smaller in our neck of the woods, but inventory is still very, very limited. There's a lot of New York buyers coming in, and the prices have really risen. I was chatting with one of the top commercial brokers recently, and she has a listing. It was $150,000 per unit.
Yeah. 150. Yeah, you get wide ranges. So we lost Shelby for a minute. Oh, and then and she's gone again. I was gonna introduce her to come back. She's in the middle of a lightning storm out where she's at. So the internet's dropping all the way off and on at different times. So tell us about the 30 under 30 process. So how did you get picked for 30 under 30, and what has that experience been like for you?
Yeah, so it's an application through NAR, National Association of Realtors. You're filling out maybe half a dozen or about a dozen essays. You can upload a video and basically sharing your story. So there's a few different things they look at. One is volume and sales, also your community involvement. I'm a member of GHAR, which is a local association in Connecticut. On the board, I'm part of YPN, Young Professionals Network. So they look at that and ensuring that you're involved in the community. You're looking to give back a little bit. So this is actually my third time applying. So it's a process, but it's been super, super rewarding. And I think it's been good to have a goalpost to look forward to.
Yeah. Dude, I love that as just something as a highlight, right? Your third time applying for 30 under 30. How many people do they have in the class?
Let's see. So it's a total of 30 people in each class.
Yeah. So 30 people, I guess that makes sense. So you got 30 and under 30. I've seen some people that were like nominees or like almost made it or like, so the list I was looking at was slightly bigger, but some of my closest like friends that I've interviewed on here that have become close friends have been from the 30 under 30 outreach program. So I love it. We've got Shelby back in the middle of her lightning storm. I want to ask Shelby what she's been missing out on. What are some questions and things like that she wants to ask? And
oh my gosh. Yeah, it sucks because the last thing I heard was when you were talking about this concept of new agents overvaluing learning and undervaluing doing. And then, the experienced agents, there seems to be the backwards portion of that where they overvalue doing and undervalue learning. So I guess my question is, you pushed yourself out of that and you pushed forward and you're doing. And as you're moving forward, what balance are you seeing in your business today to make sure that you're still growing, but you're still pushing forward in your business?
I think allocating time on the road, between showings and simply driving, having that be podcast or audiobook time and maybe carving out, 15, 30 minutes a day, but nowhere near the several hours I was spending initially to learn. So I think it's also time. Yeah, being diligent about that.
Hey guys, a quick commercial break here, but don't worry, this one is only going to run for the next 2 or 3 episodes. I talk so much about the mastermind. It's one of my passions, getting everybody to come hang out in Austin where I get to meet you guys. Well, we just had it, a few weeks ago, and we decided for next year we were going to do pre-sales. We're only selling 70 tickets total for the whole country. And that way we keep it nice and small where everybody meets everybody. And the end of it, it's like a big, giant family. Well, we put out the pre-sales last week. And during the pre-sales, we sold more than 60 tickets. So there's less than 10 spots left. 10 spots left if you want to join us for the mastermind for for next year. We're putting the date so far out there, you've got no excuses to be able to know that the date works. You can put it in your calendar now. And we also set up a payment plan for people to break it up into 4 easy payments. So if you're one of those people that have thought about going to the mastermind, have never pulled the trigger, now's the time. And it's for March for next year. But you got to go sign up now if you want that spot. I don't like selling. I don't like advertising. So we figured we would knock it out quickly. We'd knock it out, this first couple weeks in April for next year. So instead of working on that, we're going to focus on value. If you do join the mastermind, you get to be join part of our private Facebook group where we do monthly Zoom calls, where we do tactics. On those calls, they're really small. There's like, between 10 and 20 people on those. So you get to ask lots of questions and learn from experts. So if you are interested in signing up, go to realestaterockstarsnetwork.com/mastermind, realestaterockstarsnetwork.com/mastermind. Go lock in your ticket. We have less than 10 spots left. You can break it up into 4 payments. So that way it is much easier to be sure to join. And I promise you, it is the least expensive mastermind out there for the type of stuff that we're doing. The GoBundance masterminds that I talk about that I'm a part of cost 5 times what we do for this. And I try to deliver twice as much value. All right, back to the podcast.
And I had another question too. So as you look ahead, so it sounds like, and I might have missed it, but it sounds like you're in a brokerage that has a lot of tools and leverage provided for you. Is that correct? And do they also cover the contract to close piece for you?
Yeah, so we're super, super lucky. And to put it in perspective, when I joined Roe v. Homes, there's roughly 20 agents in 2020. Now there's 250 plus. So we've had some pretty dramatic.
Wow.
Yeah, in that time, it's grown to ranked by Inc. magazine as one of the fastest growing brokerages in the country, #1 for Massachusetts. So it's been a really beautiful opportunity to learn the business decisions that our broker has made. But my recommendation, especially for early agents, join a team. Understanding that your split's going to be a little bit lower, but as far as the learning goes, there's no better way. I have access to several highly, highly experienced agents that have sold 100, 200, 300, 400 homes, and being able to pass any questions that I have off to them. And we have a daily huddle at 6:30 a.m. So if there's any deal doctoring or anything that we need to work on, along with some morning motivation, it's really, really powerful. We've got mentors in place. We use Zendesk as a platform, and there's several different guides. So for example, if you're working on a foreclosure or a HUD deal or a land deal, this is a specific step-by-step process that you're going to be using. There's tons and tons of training.
I love that. What would you say to the people out there who say, I don't want to give up that much, how much is it? How much?
It's 50-50.
50-50. What would you say, or how would, someone starting out in the business to overcome that mental barrier of the splits?
100% of something is better than 0% of nothing, right? Especially when you're first starting out. It's a massive, massive asset. I was chatting with a colleague of mine. He was a teacher for 20 years, and he was an agent prior to joining Roe v., but we joined at a similar timeline and took it seriously. He sold over 100 homes in roughly 3.5-4 years. So we're chatting. Wow. We would have never been able to sell the number of units that we have without the training and infrastructure that Roe v. has. There's transaction coordinators that really help throughout the process. There's a lot of checks and balances. So we're very, very lucky.
I would love to fly up to where you're at and get a dive into the business and actually see everything that goes on. That's super interesting.
More than welcome. Come on by, Shelby.
Thank you.
I mean, it is wild, right? Going from 50 agents to 250 in a 3-year period.
Blows my mind.
And also making sure people get through that. I'm having conversations with agents and brokers every day that commission is the thing they're talking about the most. Commission and commission splits is at the top of mind. I think part of that is as transactions, there starts to be less transactions out there. People start to look at their costs, and then as people, they start in real estate, it's easier to get, say 50% of something is better than 100% of nothing. I love that. Right. So it's when you get started, you were willing to work for the guy for free. So getting paid 50% is amazing. There's no better, job to do than become a real estate agent. Because people say that a lot. Let me come work for you for free. I get so many emails, messages, texts, everything of let me come work for you for free. but real estate, becoming a real estate agent, if somebody's true about that, they should become a real estate agent, join a team, make sure it's an experienced team that has a lot to offer. There's a big difference between one that says, what you're describing is a really fair idea of, hey guys, when you come in, here's your list of stuff. Here's your list of leads. Here's your phone number you're going to use. Here's your reminder on your CRM, on your follow-up boss. And now sit with me. I'm going to do 30 minutes of calls. So you're going to see exactly what to say. And then after that, and I'm going to show you where to click and what to do, like hands-on learning. And then you're going to take off. So of course, it's like you're jumping through, you're getting to take like 5-10 years of real estate knowledge and know it at the very beginning. So a lot of people now, after their first few years, they say, okay, I can do this myself now.
I'm out.
I want to jump somewhere else where I get more of my commission. Is that happening in your office? If it's not, how is your broker overcoming that, or your team's overcoming that?
At a small scale, there's roughly 87% of agents, leave the business over 5 years. We have noticed some on teams. I think the average lifespan is roughly 2 years for an agent.
Sounds about
right. We have had some turnover, and I think that's going to be expected. But I think culture is also a very, very important component. There's several agents that are top agents in our region, and they've stuck with Roe v. through thick and thin. And I think culture, it's really, really important, right? Who you're working with, because you're spending a lot of time with them, and ensuring that you're aligned and values are connected are super important.
Yeah, it sounds like your organization does a really good job of articulating the value as well. Because I feel like when people leave teams, a lot of times they're like, oh, I'm going to jump ship and do it myself. And it's only once they've jumped that they realize how much the organization was actually doing behind the scenes. So the culture, in addition to the communication and, constant communication, is probably, I'm very impressed from the outside looking in. It sounds awesome.
Yeah. No, I think it would be cool to get a better chance to see hands-on. You guys, your brokerage, the team you're on, obviously doing something right up there, growing as quick as they're growing.
Field trip, Aaron.
Yes.
Let's go.
We got to get my brother to come out there too. I know he's in the middle of growing his brokerage, and there's all these growing pains that people are having. But when you're getting that big and getting to see what it's looking like, maybe that's going to be some future episodes we do. We go do some behind the scenes stuff at some of the offices that are really impressing us. So Dhaval, you talked about your goals of getting into investing next, keeping transactions, but kind of expanding that. I really love like what you highlighted earlier too, about that idea of you need to learn, but you also need to get active. You also need to take action. We talk about people that are always like the ready aim, but never shoot.
Yeah.
Like you got to be willing to go get yourself out there. Like when it comes to like driving houses and door knocking, foreclosures, there's only so much I can tell people about that process, but nothing's going to make them comfortable with that until they've door knocked 100 houses or 200 houses. Like then it gets comfortable, then it gets normal. But the first 200 houses are awkward and no fun. As people are going through that. What are your predictions with real estate and interest rates? The people up there, is your team talking about it? How is that market up there in general compared to, did you have slowdowns? Did you have some increases? Just general stuff about, Western Mass.
Yeah, great question. So I bounced back and forth between Mass and Connecticut. We're about 30 minutes from the border. And, Hartford County is actually the number one market in the entire country right now. Worcester County is very close to Western Mass, and that's the number 4 market in the entire country. So we're lucky in the sense that prices, and as an example, there's an offer a property in my hometown that had 73 offers recently, and it went 130,000 above list. All cash, no connection, no appraisal. So it's highly, highly competitive. It's been difficult as agents. I put in an offer recently, 100,000 above list, all conventional for a client. We weren't even considered. We weren't in the top 3. So it is highly, highly competitive. But on the listing side, I've got a listing right now, and my seller's going to be thrilled. We're chatting here in a little bit right after the podcast to review offers. They're going to be very happy with what they're getting for their home. So it's difficult in that sense. And the total units, to put in perspective, according to Keeping Current Matters, there's roughly 6.8 million units sold throughout the country in 2021. That dropped to about 5.8 last year. And originally projections were 5.2. I think revised projections are roughly 4.2 for this year. And historically, right before the '08 crash, were roughly 8 million units. And the lowest point right after that was roughly 4 million, to put everything in perspective. So I think we're definitely feeling it with unit count.
I have a question about, you mentioned 73 offers on $130,000 above list. So if you're working with a buyer, just real quick, what does that conversation look like when you're working with a buyer? They've got to be like, nah, man, you're kidding. Like, how do you combat that?
It can be a challenge, but we're really upfront. So we typically have buyer consultations with clients when we're first meeting them, or even in the driveway, if the offer deadline is very close, and giving them an overview and being really, really honest and transparent. This is a market that we're looking at, and providing recent sales. This is a comp. It sold X above list price. The listing price is just the starting price in this region. And real estate is very localized. There's other parts of the country where they're seeing declines of 9 to 15%. We're the opposite. Listings are down 38% versus same time April of last year, and it's quite a unique market to be in.
I love your knowledge of your data in your local market. Everybody out there should be trying to train on that. I want to share my screen for a second, see if I can find this. All right. So you said Worcester County, right?
Yeah, Worcester County.
All right. So as we're looking at, I went on my, so for those of you on YouTube, you're seeing my screen, I hope, if I'm doing everything correctly on here. But Worcester County is one of those places that looks like nothing has changed the last few years, meaning nothing has changed like from the market where we're seeing these year over year price increases. The orange is the 2021 prices, where 2 years ago, median house price was $376,000 where you're at. And then last year it was 416,000 where you're at, and then now it's at 437. So you're just seeing these year over year seasonal declines, and that's pretty normal to see in real estate markets if you're tracking it over like a 5 or 10 year period, except for these kind of weird blips. And so if we're looking at like homes sold though, like the volume is way down. So as you're seeing like the difference, that was the other thing that you talked about, is the volume has gone down. So there was a lot more transactions happening in 2021, less in 2022, more in 2023. So even though prices are going up, it's harder for agents to make ends meet because it's tougher to get kind of those deals. The other stat I was going to look for up here was the months of inventory, if I could find it. So age of inventory, months of supply. So this months of supply data. So it says weeks of supply. So you've got 8 weeks of supply. It's been pretty standard for the past 3 years. You got about 2 months of inventory. I like to show this so I can show the difference of what people hear me talking about in Austin, because I see Austin, Texas all the time. And so you just see these differences of why there's so many different tales of the market, and why it's important that we interview people all over the US right now, really. Because in Austin, we've got, 16 weeks of supply, which also that's not bad. But if you look at last year at this time, it was 8 weeks, and the year before that was 6 weeks. And when we go to like our median price out here, if I can find it as I click through, so median sales price, Austin is a very different curve, right? So 2021, the beginning of 2022, prices were up year over year, but we had these big increases, right? It was a 24% year over year increase. But now today in Austin, we're at a $469,000 median sales price. And a year ago, we were at 574. So we're down 18% year over year, seasonally adjusted out here. And so it's really interesting as we look at these different areas. So like agents, what I was really impressed with Dhaval right now is he knows his market. And so when people are going to ask him, the reason I like to ask people their predictions is because every client you have is going to ask you your predictions. They're going to say, what's going to happen with the market? Right? Like, so should I buy right now? Is the price going up or down? And people can be, people can guess, you can regurgitate what you hear on the internet, or you can try to look into the data in your into your market area and like be educated with it. So I asked Dhaval the question. He's very educated with his answer. If I'm a buyer or I'm a seller, I'm going to trust that. I'm going to go, okay, that makes sense. I see how that goes. And I cannot imagine the conversation like what Shelby said.
Oh my God, blows my mind.
With your clients, when you're like, hey, 2 years ago, people said list price is just starting price, Or list price is like opening bid amount, like an auction, but it's not real. When you're telling your client, I think we need to come in about 130,000 over asking cash. You gotta be fucking out of your mind, right? Like, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do, I'm not going to like trust that. I'm going to be like, come on. Why would I do that? Hey, real estate rock stars. We only have a few minutes left in this episode, but before we get to the grand finale, I just wanted to say, as always, thank you for listening. You know, podcasts are obviously free. You don't have to pay to listen to the podcast, but if you could pay one thing, if I could charge you one thing to listen to this podcast, what I would ask you to do is go, please make a review. Go to wherever you listen to podcasts, whether it's on YouTube or on Apple or Android, wherever you listen to podcasts, and go give me a review of the podcast. I read them, I listen to them, I try to make adjustments. You know, a couple years ago, I had a ton of bad reviews on the sound quality or the number of advertisements and things like that, and I've really tried to dial in to add value for all of you guys. So please go do a review. If you want to get a copy of the toolbox of the stuff that, you know, everybody that comes on the show, they give us some tactics, they give us something that we put in what we call our toolbox. And so to get that, you go to realestaterockstarsnetwork.com. When you get there, click on the toolbox and you get access to the free gift that every person that we interview on the episode provides. There's things like, you know, listing tactics, how to do a presentation, you know, how to do a newsletter, all sorts of cool, fun stuff. And if you want to talk to me, go find me on Instagram at Aaron Amuchastegui. Ask me a question. I talk to so many of you guys on there. All right, back to the show. Thanks again for being a listener. No question there other than just being like, that's freaking crazy. So Dhaval, we've only got a couple minutes left. One of the questions we like to ask people is like, tell us about one of your biggest failures or something that you learned from out there that you think that you think other people might like to hear.
Yeah. When I was 18 years old, I got in the franchising business. So one of my first jobs was in the food industry. So at 18, got in that specific franchise and was offered an opportunity to essentially buy a location, pennies on the dollar, directly from corporate. And I didn't do proper due diligence. I was 18. I didn't know any better, and ultimately ended up shutting down that location. And cost me a pretty penny. There was a 12-month lease buyout. So it was a painful lesson. And it was probably one of my rock bottom moments. It was Christmas Eve of 2017. I was taking a few courses in Boston at the Extension School at Harvard, and my roommates had gone back home, and here I am in this cold winter, and we lost a lot of money on that. But it was a great learning lesson in not rushing into an opportunity and letting excitement get the best of you. So taking a step back and really analyzing the consequences. What happens if things don't go as planned? And for real estate, if you're buying a property, what are your exit strategies? If your game plan is just to rent it out, for example, Airbnb, what if the market shifts? What if we do enter a recession and things continue to slide? Are you able to rent it out or sell it? What are some other exit strategies? So I think it was a painful but very, very powerful learning lesson.
Dude, your story hit me on so many levels, like that excitement, like been there with my own investment properties. And then also with the Airbnb shutdown. I just shut down 18 Airbnbs and converted them into long-term. So feel you. I have a question though. When you're 18 and something's costing you a pretty penny, like I want to ask how much a pretty penny is, but more importantly, I want to ask about like, how did you find the money to cover that? If that's okay for asking, Aaron. Yeah. Because we're like, yeah, okay, cool.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been saving since I was 14, and expenses are pretty low. So I had a good chunk saved up, and the cost of the location was fairly minimal. So the total loss. Ready for this? It was roughly $60,000.
Damn, as an 18-year-old.
That's like life savings, man. If you're 18, 60,000 is $1 million.
6,000 is $1 million.
Yeah.
For me.
If you're into 5 digits of savings when you're 18 years old, that's $1 million. And it's like, nobody can stop you. And oh my goodness, I bet you learned, I've learned the hard way several times about like corporate and office leases, right? Yeah. Retail leases, office leases. And so you get these and you go, this is a really, really great idea or something, but that is probably the worst buyouts I've ever had was whenever my wife said the way that I should be able to predict the market is based on when I sign a giant office lease. Because every time I've signed like giant office leases, within 2 or 3 months, I'm actually like laying off 90% of my people. And it's happened 3 times in my little, so she said that's the bigger predictor of like, the top of the market when Aaron actually, cause I also hate getting them. So she's like, the biggest predictor of are we at a housing like bubble is when Aaron is so confident he's going to sign a long-term lease at a giant office space, and then it's going to work. So we only got a minute or 2 left. I just wanted to ask Shelby, what was your favorite thing you heard from Dhaval today? If you were going to highlight some of the stuff that you learned.
There are so many things. Oh my gosh. What I mentioned before about the conversion from the learning piece to the doing piece, because I feel like that is such a big one. I also love that I caught the tail end of it as I was coming back in, but you applied 3 times for 30 under 30, where everyone quits too early consistently. And also love that you're getting into investing. I'd love to talk to you offline about that as well. So
of course.
Yeah.
That's what I got.
Yeah, Dhaval, you would be a perfect fit for our group that hangs out annually out in Austin. Like you're at that perfect spot in your career where you're doing a lot of good stuff in real estate, but trying to expand into these other businesses and other investment stuff. People are going to want to reach out to you, Dhaval. They're going to want to send you referrals to your area. They're going to want to ask you how you're doing it, or they're going to be like me and Shelby who want to come tour your office and shadow you for a day. What is the best way people can come find you?
Yeah, I've been super lucky, and mentors have done this for me, so I'd love to pass it forward. Shoot me a text. It's my direct business cell. It's 413-224-6219. Again, that's 413-224-6219.
Awesome. I know people are going to be reaching out to you. To all you listeners out there, as always, thank you for listening. If you want to come tell me how I'm doing, give us the good review, the bad review, come find me on Instagram at Aaron Amuchastegui. Shelby, what's the best way people can follow you?
Instagram at The Shelby Show.
The Shelby Show. It's one of my favorite places to meet people, to get to chat. And for any of you listeners that have reached out already, you know that I answer those messages. We talk and we become lifelong friends. It's the real deal. Dhaval, thank you so much for coming on today, sharing your story and providing so much value to new agents.
You're awesome, dude.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Shelby, thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
And Real Estate Rockstars, thanks for listening.